Today's guest is the #1 real estate agent by transaction count with Pearson Smith Realty, and he's only in his second year in the business. He's a real estate investor himself, successful YouTube content creator with the Moving to Virginia, West Virginia YouTube channel. He's a father under 30 of 3. I can say now officially 1 more on the way. So very exciting. Congratulations on that. And someone I've had the absolute pleasure of working with for the last year and the privilege of calling a very good friend. And one final accolade, you are the only person that I have ever seen bring your own knife to a 5-star steak restaurant and use it to eat what I'm embarrassed to say, how much those steaks cost that we ate. So welcome to the Your Home podcast, Rex Petrey.
Just correction, aspiring to be #1.
In the recent past, you were at #1 by transaction count. Yeah. And you're steamrolling ahead to finish the year strong. So the purpose here, there's 2 things that we want to get into. The first one is going to be we want to educate people who are looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate. And then the second thing is talk to people who are working in the industry, and we're going to discuss some strategies that are working for you and some things that aren't working for you. And so, people who are in the business can, watch along and learn from that as well. So we're going to go through your story, talk about, how you got to where you're at today. We're going to talk about the real estate market right now, strategies for buyers to win in today's market, and then, what sellers need to be prepared for as well. And then you've got some controversy. You're creating a stir on YouTube. So we're going to talk about that. That's some fun stuff. And then get into what I really want to talk to you about is some of your sales and negotiating tactics that you use that I think you really have dialed in that have sort of, to me, when I look at it, have been kind of the secret sauce to this meteoric rise that you've had, over the past couple of years. So talk to us about what you were doing before you got into real estate and, how you got to where you're at now.
So started off in construction doing just, handyman jobs with my dad. After that, started my own painting company, was doing that for a few years, and had some big life changes, occur, and then was offered a position doing full-time sales and estimating for a bigger painting company. And so that was my first real transition into sales. And after doing that for about 4 or 5 years, then decided to make a switch into real estate, and, thankfully it's taken off.
What was it that kind of said, hey, I'm going to make the jump into real estate?
Sure. So for me, it was more when I was doing the painting sales, that was the first time I ever had any kind of training. And prior to getting into it, I had never wanted to do sales because I just had that picture of a used car salesman in mind, manipulating people, and wanted no part of that. The training that I got was all based on open and honest communication, the fact that, the way I see it, sales is problem solving. Mm-hmm. And that's when I really started to fall in love with it. After doing the painting, seeing that, in my opinion, I didn't feel like the problems I was solving were big enough, because it's just kind of routine maintenance for a home. I decided I wanted to get into something that was a little bit bigger and would be more of an intimate process with, the clients that I'm working with.
When I met you, you were in your first, I think it was your first deal that you had. It was in your listing, came in, met you at the open house. And, from there, things have really kind of taken off for you. But at the same time, the market has really transformed in that year since you had that first deal. So interest rates right now at 20-year highs. There's a lot of fear, from buyers, and sellers are hesitant because sellers are buyers too. So let's talk a little bit about the market right now. What market do you work in?
So I work in primarily the Shenandoah Valley and the Eastern Panhandle of West Virginia. So Frederick County, where, Winchester, down in Shenandoah County, Strasburg, Warren County, Front Royal, that kind of area. And then also in the Panhandle, it would be, Charlestown, Harpers Ferry,
okay,
those areas. And then I also, I grew up in Loudoun County,
right,
and lived in Fairfax County for a time. So I still work in those markets as well.
Right. Yeah, when I met you, you were in Herndon at your listing. You've had, McLean, Burke, but primarily, we talked about your YouTube channel, moving to Virginia, West Virginia. So you're right there on that border area there. What are you seeing as far as like activity in those markets?
So a lot of the people I've been working with recently are relocation clients. So, from the YouTube channel, we have people calling from all across the country. But in general, I'm also working with a lot of people that are selling their home in Northern Virginia and then coming out to either West Virginia or, Frederick County, looking for a slower pace, remote workers, a lot of retirees, because it's a nice price point out there. You can get a home. A lot of clients that I'm working with that are going there to retire, they're looking for a single level, and they can get something that they really like for under 450,000, which is kind of just unheard of, over in Northern Virginia.
Historically, I've always worked with first-time home buyers has been the thing, and so it's nice that there's sort of an entry point there. If you are a first-time home buyer, that you can get something that seems a little bit more reasonable, and kind of within your grasp. So we just went over the how many months of inventory, and I said, explain that, because they say, oh, there's 1.5 months of inventory in Winchester, Virginia. What does that mean?
So basically it's just, so a normal market or a balanced market would be between 5 and 6 months of inventory. Anything above that is a buyer's market. Anything below that typically is a seller's market. So when you hear if it's 2 months or less, then it should be heavily a seller's market.
Right.
But with the rates being what they are, it's kind of throwing it off a little bit. So you have this interesting mix where there'll be some homes that, as soon as it's on the market, even before it hits active, if it's just coming soon, they'll have multiple offers. And usually those are turnkey between, at least in Frederick County, 300 and 475, 500. If they check the box for especially retirees or someone that has a lot of cash they can put down, then those ones are flying.
Right.
If it's something that isn't necessarily updated in the 350-ish range, and it would be more geared toward a first-time home buyer, if it's not really nice, then it may sit a little longer because people kind of want to be picky. If they're paying this much in the rates, then they don't want to settle for the house. But so if it's basically what it means is if no new listings came on the market, then how long would it take for the homes that are on the market to sell? So if it's 2 months, then if no new listings popped up, it would take 2 months roughly for all the inventory to be gone.
Yeah, it's an interesting market that we're in right now because there's this sort of battle between the low inventory. We say there's really high demand, but affordability is down right now because of the rates being as high as they are. So buyers really have to be creative. We have to remember sellers, when they sell that house, they got to go buy somewhere as well. So there are some strategies that we do on the financing side. We're doing temporary buy downs, and we've had a lot of success in getting buyers credits to help lower the overall costs and sort of sweeten the pot for them to say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and get into the market right now, even though you've got those 2 months of inventory. Buyers can go out right now and get some good deals. So what's sort of the prep that you take a buyer through to just make sure that they're in the best position to go all the way through with, from the initial conversation with them to becoming, getting the keys to their new house?
Sure. So one of the first most important pieces that I want to talk with them about is their motivation. Why are they moving? Is there any kind of a timeline? Because I never want my clients to feel like I'm either moving slower than they need to be or, make them feel like I'm pushing them along. And so I just let them know, like, hey, whatever your speed is, that's the speed I'm going to go at. If you ever feel like we're on different, wavelengths, just let me know, and then I can adjust. Because if they're not super motivated or they can, I can wait for the right house. It doesn't matter if it's 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. Then I just really want to drill down on what exactly are you looking for.
Right. So
then when I see that, I can let you know. And for me, I really try to just focus on each specific person, each specific house. And it all, boils down to motivation.
Yeah. We've got very similar styles. the idea that you could sell someone a house to me always seemed crazy. And no offense to used car salesmen, but that's always the term that people use, and they get a bad rap. There's nothing wrong with used car salesmen. All the used car salesmen I know, they're good guys.
Yeah, my
But
brother's a
anyways,
used car salesman.
yeah. So the idea that you could sell someone, like convince someone to buy a house, it was just so far-fetched to me. So you and I have that same sort of approach where it's like, hey, whatever you want. That was, for me, that was sort of the style that I learned in, like you talk about problem solving. For me, it was just give the people whoever your customer is, just give them whatever they want. It's that easy. And then that light bulb went off in my head. It's like, oh, all you got to do is figure out what they want, then give it to them. We're not pushing someone into doing something that, they're not comfortable with. With your sellers that you're working with, you go so far above and beyond what I've ever seen, any listing agent do. And I don't know if that's in the job description, if you can talk about, some of those things.
Sure. Yeah. So I always tell my clients that, I'm not afraid to get my hands dirty if I need to. And, I'll do that if it's necessary to get, if I know looking at a house, okay, if we put in X amount, it's going to be a lot more and a quicker sale, which usually, means we're going to get better terms and a higher price. Then it's absolutely worth doing that as opposed to just lowering the price to begin with. But a lot of times people don't want to put the money up front, which is understandable, or they can't, in which case, depending on what the work is, we can just take care of it.
Yeah. It's funny you said, it's like, we just take care of it.
Yeah.
And that's what I see for your clients is it just gets taken care of. I don't know if you want to necessarily promote this as part of your service, but I've seen you do it on multiple occasions, coming in and doing repairs and upgrades to the property, putting your own sweat into it. It's a testament to how much you care about your clients and helping them out. And when I talk to, especially some of those buyers who are relocating, I always let them know, they're working with the absolute best when it comes to that, because you've got a very good network and you're good at finding people if they need a contractor or whatever it is to go in and get some work done after they buy the house. You'll go and actually do that legwork of finding them someone. I've seen you in this office just sit down, pick up the phone and call one of your competitors and say, hey, I'm coming after you, but also let's go grab a coffee. So, do you have a philosophy or approach to that, or is that just something that comes natural to you? Because it's pretty cool to see.
When it comes to stuff like that, I look at it as it's all friendly competition.
Yeah.
I'm very competitive, but I'm also not a sore loser.
Yeah.
And so, if I need to know what numbers I'm going against to know what my goal really is. And so that's why in the beginning I corrected, not quite number one yet, because the person you're talking about I called currently is number one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And, but no, for me, it's, and going back to like with the sellers, the way that I look at all my clients is how can I bring more value to each one as opposed to anybody else. And I learned that deeply with working at the painting company because we were oftentimes the most expensive.
Right.
Not one of them, like we were the most expensive. Our guys were amazing. The process is amazing, but we really had to show that value up front because at the end of the day, you won't know until the job's done.
Right.
And so I've carried that into real estate is, what value can I bring aside from, just knowing how to do, buying and selling. And so when it comes to, networking and reaching out to either contractors or other agents, there's always the potential for some value to be transferred back and forth. It's helpful that a lot of the people that I'm talking with aren't necessarily direct competition in the same markets,
right,
that we're working in. But, I feel like most agents are pretty competitive. They enjoy the competition. And especially knowing that, a year and a half in, if someone's been in 10 years, they're not going to look at it as that serious, although, I'm hoping that they should.
Yeah. What I see you do with the buyers that you're representing, I know that you have won properties for your clients where you haven't been the highest and best offer. It hasn't necessarily been, the most money to the seller. And that's pretty amazing because it has been a competitive market. So where does that come from?
A lot of people will think that whatever the highest price is, that's what the seller is most concerned about, but you never know that. In one instance, where we had a mutual client that was overseas, not even in the country, went and did a virtual tour and then brought her dad to go look at the property, and they decided they wanted it. There was a total of 9 offers, if I remember correctly. And so I called the listing agent, and we were on the phone, and there was a deadline like 3 hours later. We were on the phone for 45 minutes, because she's a real friendly lady, and
Yeah.
we were just chatting, and for me, it's all about building rapport as well.
Yeah.
And so I just kept asking questions. What's most important to them? What would be helpful for them? Could they use a rent back? Do they want a quicker close? And I don't remember exactly, what it was in that instance that they had wanted. But I knew my client would go, 85,000 over list in that instance. And there were 9 other offers. And she was asking for highest and best. They don't want any escalation clauses. And I obviously don't want my client to spend the maximum that they want to. So
Right.
I just asked her, if we did it at X amount, where would that bring us? She's like, well, that's not quite it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, how about,
You can,
this?
you can feel it out.
Yeah. And then so in that instance, we wrote it up. It was 40,000 less than my client was willing to go to, and we won. And
Right.
that one we were the second highest offer. So
And I think what some people will miss in all of that is they'll look and they'll see that conversation is all about the numbers and the intel. It's so much more about the rapport that you're building with the other side, and letting them know that, hey, you're somebody that puts in the effort. You're someone who they know that they're going to get reliable communication from, and they feel confident going with you and your buyer, forward with the transaction. It's the numbers is a little bit of it. Obviously getting that information, but I just know in the instances where it hasn't been the highest and best, you've heard it directly from the listing agent's mouth. It's like, hey, we went with you because we didn't hear from these other agents. What should a buyer be looking for when they're going and hiring a real estate agent?
I'm going to see how quickly I can pull this up. So not every agent will likely have something put together like this, but, like we talked about, I like to know my numbers. And so I put something together just to show both buyer and seller clients. I'll show this to clients, because a lot of people can say, like, I do this, I do that,
Yeah.
and then have nothing to prove it. Or if they ask, well, what specifically is an instance where you did that? And if you don't have it written down, most people can't just take it off the top. So here's a list of the listings for 2023, and I'm able to show days on market. The average days on market was 3.5. The average list to sold price was 106.65%. So when I say that the homes that I list based off my, listing strategy sell quickly, most non-contingent,
Right.
And then all but one overlist, and the one that wasn't overlist was at list. I can show them, and they can look up each of these addresses and see. And then for buyers, I show list to sold price, and how, my goal isn't just for sellers to make the most money. My goal for my buyers is also to save the most.
Right.
And so I can show, $1 million 1.088 property we got for $995. The second one, 475, got for 465 plus a $12,000 seller concession.
You're not afraid. I know on both sides of it. Obviously, when you're working with the buyer, I've been closely involved. The one in particular I'm thinking of, guy's 55 years old, had never purchased a home before, never thought he'd be able to purchase a home. We worked with him for about 6 months, and you were able to negotiate for him enough credit to get a buy down on his interest rate and pay for his closing costs. And so he wound up a guy that had $30,000, that he was really stretching to put into the deal, and he had a monthly payment budget stretching it to $2,800. He wound up with a $2,200 monthly payment and only putting $24,000 into the deal. And that was something where you said, hey, these are your parameters. This is what you're looking for. Okay, that's all you need to say to me. Let's go get it. And it took him some time, but when we get calls from a client afterwards just saying, hey, this is incredible. I'm 55 years old. I never thought I was going to be able to buy a house. And, those are the kind of, the stories that give me bring a little tear to your eye. So I want to talk about this YouTube controversy. You're stirring up the pot on YouTube. You're getting a lot of people riled up. It wasn't just people in the comment section, random people. Some people pretty close to you, pretty damn close to you, that you were getting riled up. I'd love for you to share the story with the viewers here.
Sure. Yeah. So me and an agent I'm partnering with for the YouTube channel, we started making some videos, and a lot of them are just pros and cons, or, what it's like living in this city, cost of living. And we decided to go for more longer form content and really get more into the details. And so we put out one of reasons to avoid moving to West Virginia, and so we were doing a cons video and then the pros as a separate one after it.
Right.
But like they say, people love looking at a train wreck. So the avoid got the most hits by far, and all of our stuff is organic. We don't push it on Facebook where friends will see it. We don't run ads or anything on it. And the first comment that popped up on the avoid video, which probably was literally a few hours after it was posted, was my West Virginia broker. And she commented, and this was shortly after I had gotten my West Virginia license too. So I was the new Virginia agent coming into West Virginia, and this is the first thing she sees that I put out for West Virginia. And she comments something like, you need to do more local research before speaking out of turn, or something like that. And so I called her and was just like, Dawn, this is what we're trying to do. There's a pros video coming, and it's all good now. But some people just they don't listen to what's being said. It's more of just the clickbait stuff. Like, he's saying don't move to West Virginia, and then run with that. So
it's a question that I have always had, and you did answer it. In that video, you did such a great job of actually just explaining, and even though it's a little bit of a clickbait title, like, reasons not to move to West Virginia, it's like, hey, this is a great place to live. I mean, one of the things I love about it is it's got one of the highest rates for home ownership in the entire country. So, you got to love that. And, the fact that people have the opportunity to get in there and own versus, some of these places that might seem, quite a bit more desirable. It's like, well, the affordability isn't there. So I think that's something that people are really starting to look at and consider, as real estate prices, are, this is becoming, national headlines, the affordability issues, and more people are going to start to look for information like what you're putting out to make those decisions. But,
and it's funny, a lot of the calls that we're getting, I mean, because we started this, I don't even think a year ago at this point. And we've gotten, it's probably been a couple hundred calls and emails from people across the country. And the vast majority of them are people who are still considering, and have decided they want to move to West Virginia. And I always ask them, what video did you see that prompted you to call? And it's, 8 times out of 10, the avoid moving to West Virginia one.
Yeah.
And, they're like, I've tried to find stuff like that. Nobody else has put anything like that. Really appreciate it. None of these cons are really a big deal to me, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so I always thought that was interesting. Some people get so fired up about it, and it's like the people that are actually buying are the ones looking at it and then reaching out after it.
Yeah.
So
the videos are, they're fun. I mean, they're super engaging, like super well done. I mean, as far as you and your partner on that, you guys do an amazing, job with it. So, as far as like the entertainment factor, but it's just packed with real tangible value, for people. So I'll make sure to put, we'll obviously put a link in this wherever this is being, shared, it's moving, or it's just moving to Virginia, West Virginia on YouTube. So it's great what you're doing with that. And as far as a business strategy, being able to find that information, figure out what kind of questions people have, you put the work in, do the research, and then answer those questions, and then look what happens. So what are the stats? I think where are you at on that? I mean,
as far as
viewership, when did that video get posted?
That one was 6 months ago, I think.
Okay.
And I mean, that video alone, last I checked, had like 65,000 views.
Wow.
Probably like close to 400 comments on it. The channel just passed, I think, 1,100 subscribers.
Oh yeah, congratulations,
Thanks.
man! I know that was a big goal for you guys to get to 1,000.
Yeah,
and
especially all organic.
Yeah,
I mean, because initially I wanted to start, sharing it on Facebook and this and that. And the guy behind the scenes was like, "Trust me, no, we want the algorithm to push it to people in other states that are looking, not locally. Local viewership is good, but it's not what we're really going for." And so, yeah, pretty much all of that is just organic from across the country.
You have an approach, like a pretty scientific method for your sale. We'll call it sales, but kind of communication and working with people. There's the acronym for it, the DISC.
Mm-hmm.
This is super interesting to me. I know I ask you about it all the time. This time it's actually going to be recorded, so I won't have to ask about it again. But for the viewers, can you talk about that DISC method and sort of how that's not just helped you, but helped a lot of your clients sort of take the next step and move forward with whether it be buying or selling?
Sure. Yeah. So I learned that was the second phase of training, if you will, at the painting company. They had some great training.
Okay.
Yeah, they had awesome training. Thanks, Brian. So DISC is more about, there's, what's that one test, the personality test that everybody does? Myers-Briggs.
Myers-Briggs.
So
yeah.
Myers-Briggs, personality, but DISC is more about communication styles.
Okay.
And that's why I really dive into it, because when I was first learning about it, my close rate or win percentage at the painting company was about 32%. And then very shortly after learning and really kind of taking a deep dive into DISC, it jumped up to 55%. And I found that there were certain people that communication styles, we really butted heads, because I didn't really understand that this is just how they communicate, and how they like to be heard or be talked with. And then so after learning that, I could just adjust based on how the person I'm speaking with likes to communicate, and it helps build rapport that much faster. It makes them feel more comfortable to really tell me what they care about. And so I've brought that into real estate, where when I'm first meeting with somebody, we don't know each other. They probably don't trust me right off the bat. And the best way to gain trust is for someone to know that you care, that you're listening. And so, I just try to adjust my communication style to whoever I'm speaking with,
right?
So that they feel more comfortable, and we can kind of just continue on with things.
My question is, are you using that kind of sorcery on me right now?
No, of course not. Yeah, no, I mean, bringing it into real estate, it's interesting because, at the end of the day, like we were talking about earlier, what's your goal?
Yeah.
Can we get there? And my job is to help get us there. And so a lot of that is, educating people along the way, being able to shoot straight with them. So one thing I always like to ask people is, are you okay with me being, bluntly honest with you throughout this process?
Right.
Because I want you to know that what I'm telling you is to reach that goal, not because I'm trying to push you one way or the other.
So many people are afraid to communicate that way, sugarcoat things, avoid certain questions. And I've seen it time and time again. It's so bad for the actual client, especially in mortgage. Obviously, we're dealing with people's, finances and qualifying them, and you need to make sure you're getting the full story right up front. But it's amazing how people appreciate it. You would be scared to be blunt with people and direct, but they'll tell you, I really appreciate you just coming out and telling me how it is. A lot of times it's if you have maybe some bad news for people.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people want to sugarcoat that and try to put some spin on it.
Well, I found so there's a few things that I always have to talk with people about beforehand, because if you're just out of the gate bluntly honest, that's really gonna, if they don't know your intention or whatnot, then it can really throw some people off.
Yeah.
So, I let people know from the get go that when we meet, I look at this as an opportunity to earn your business. I'm not expecting that just because we met up, you're automatically going to continue working with me. At any point you can say, hey, we're not a good fit, and I'm totally okay with that. You can text me, call me, whatever.
Yeah.
At any point you feel like we're not the best fit, that is totally fine. So starting off by essentially giving people permission to fire me at any point, I think really helps to build trust, because they know, like, I've communicated it, that is an option. And I also let them know that my goal is to help you reach your goal. It's not to sell you a house as quickly as possible or anything like that. And then so after explaining those things, and there's probably a few others that come up, but those are the main two, is letting them know that they can fire me at any point, and that my goal is whatever your goal is. And then I'll ask, is it okay if I'm just completely honest with you?
Yeah.
Because then they know that the reason I'm saying what I'm saying is because it's helpful to get them to whatever goal that we talked about. So if I don't do those two things, then it might not work as well. But from having those conversations up front, it really seems to help.
Yeah, I think that's really important for buyers and sellers both to just understand, like, hey, there's a lot of real estate agents out there that you could be working with, but whether you're somebody that's choosing to reach out and work with Rex if you're moving into the Virginia, West Virginia, or Northern Virginia area, or wherever you are in the country, as a third party, neutral party, I would just reiterate, that's what you really want to be looking for, is someone who is going to be, very direct and, an open, transparent, communicator. So, how are you balancing all this? Like, where are you going in the future, and, what's the plan?
That's been an interesting problem I've been trying to solve. Because when I first started out, so I had left my other job before I even got my license, because I knew I was never great in school. I learned things very quickly, and but if I lost interest, then I was just done. And so I knew if I was going to go all into this, I had to go all in. So I left the other job before I even got licensed, started studying, took the test 2 days after my son was born, because he was born a month early. And so the first problem that I had to solve with that was getting business, getting started. And so it's just been, a series of problem solving and getting higher level problems for, my business.
Yeah.
And right now, and so as each problem gets solved and the new one comes up, when I was first starting, I was doing open houses every single weekend, Saturday and Sunday, showings whenever, if I got a call at 7:00 at night or 6:30, I'd go and run and do the showing, because I needed to start making some money for the family. Yeah. Whereas now I'm able to set more boundaries, and I've built other relationships with other agents, where, say, I get the call at 6:30 and they want to go look at something, I can reach out to a few other agents and say, hey, can you show this for me? So that way I'm not running out, and can have that time with the family. And now the biggest problem that I'm trying to solve is just, there's only so much I can do at one time. So I'm going to start looking for, probably, like full-time admin help.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's probably going to really help when it comes to being able to balance everything, because
there's only so much you can do, as one person. Is a team something that, would be in the future for you?
So I have someone in my ear that's been telling me I should.
Yeah.
Actually, so I have two transaction coordinators I work with, and they're amazing. I would not have been able to do probably a quarter of what I did this year if I hadn't, found them. And one of them's been in my ear saying, you remind me a lot of this other agent I work with who, has a big successful team. And so it's something I've been thinking of, and yeah, I'm definitely open if there's an agent that, thinks that could be a good fit for them, absolutely.
How can people get a hold of you?
Call, text, email.
Anyway,
Yeah.
they can comment on your YouTube video.
Yep. That too. Yeah. Might not get back to you as quickly for that, but.
So all the social media, and then, I'll list your contact information. So if you're moving to Virginia, West Virginia, Northern Virginia area, and you're looking for, a great real estate agent, or if you're someone that's, thinking about transitioning out, Rex Petrey, we'll have all of his contact information here. You can reach out to him directly. And anything else that you'd like to add?
No, I think that.
All right. Okay. Cut.